Alicia, a young black girl, stood at the bus stop, waiting for her ride home after school. It was a usual afternoon, but this time, something felt different. She had been looking forward to getting home and relaxing after a long day of classes, but fate had other plans. As she stood there minding her own business, a police car pulled up beside the curb. The officer inside rolled down his window and eyed Alicia with a certain suspicion. Alicia had seen police officers around her neighborhood before, but this time, something felt off. The officer got out of his car and walked towards her. Alicia felt a little nervous, but quickly reminded herself that she had done nothing wrong. She was just a girl waiting for the bus. But the officer didn't seem to think that. His eyes scanned her up and down in a way that made her feel like she was being judged for something she hadn't even done yet. Alicia straightened her back and looked him in the eyes, trying to stay calm. She had dealt with situations like this before, but today something was different. The officer started talking to her in a tone that was calm but also condescending. He asked her where she was going and why she was standing there alone. Alicia told him she was just waiting for the bus, but the officer didn't seem convinced. He asked again, this time with more suspicion in his voice. "Are you sure you're not causing trouble around here?" he said, crossing his arms. Alicia's heart began to race, but she kept her cool. She knew that she hadn't done anything wrong, but it seemed like this officer was looking for a reason to accuse her. Alicia's mind raced as she tried to figure out what to say. She knew she had to handle the situation carefully. The officer wasn't just talking to her casually. He was scrutinizing her every move as though he expected her to do something wrong. She was used to people making assumptions about her based on the way she looked. But it still hurt every time. She took a deep breath and with a slight frown spoke up. "My mom is in the Special Forces." She didn't say it to impress him or to sound like she was trying to make up some kind of excuse. It was simply the truth. Alicia's mother had served in the military for years and was part of an elite group of soldiers. Alicia had always been proud of her mother, even if not many people understood the challenges she faced. But as soon as the words left her mouth, she could tell the officer didn't believe her. The officer let out a short laugh, almost as if Alicia had told him a joke. "Your mom? In the Special Forces?" he scoffed, shaking his head. "Come on, kid, don't lie." "Who do you think you're fooling?" Alicia's stomach sank. She had expected disbelief, but the officer's mockery stung in a way she hadn't anticipated. She tried not to let it get to her. Her mother had always taught her to be proud of who she was, no matter what anyone said. But in that moment, Alicia couldn't help feeling small. The officer's words cut deep, and she could feel the weight of his judgment pressing down on her. She knew it wasn't her fault, but the feeling of being underestimated, especially by someone in a position of authority, made her angry. Despite the officer's laughter, Alicia stood her ground. "I'm telling you the truth," she said, her voice more confident than she felt. "My mom really is in the Special Forces. She's part of an elite team." The officer raised an eyebrow, clearly not taking her seriously. He laughed again, this time louder, almost as if he thought she was making up some wild fantasy. Alicia's frustration grew, but she didn't back down. She had learned from her mother that people often judged others based on how they looked or where they came from. It wasn't fair, but it was reality. Alicia didn't fit the officer's idea of what a Special Forces child should look like, and that was exactly why he found it hard to believe. Alicia's mother didn't wear a uniform all the time, and Alicia didn't look like the children of military officers you might see in movies. But just because she didn't fit some stereotype didn't mean her mother wasn't exactly who she said she was. The officer's face twisted into an expression of disbelief, and he crossed his arms again, taking a step back. "I think you've got your story mixed up, kid. Special Forces? Yeah, right. You're not fooling anyone." Alicia's heart raced as she realized that the officer wasn't going to believe her, but at the same time she knew she wasn't going to let him win. "I'm not lying," she repeated firmly, standing tall despite the officer's smirk. In that moment, Alicia knew she had to prove him wrong, but she didn't know how. All she could do was hope that somehow her mother would show up soon and put an end to this nonsense. The officer continued to stare at her, still skeptical and dismissive. He didn't know that Alicia wasn't just some girl making up stories. She was a daughter of someone who had worked hard and sacrificed a lot. Alicia didn't need to prove herself to him, but she also wasn't about to let him think she was lying. As the conversation continued, Alicia's frustration simmered, but she kept her composure. She had dealt with judgment her whole life, but this time it felt different. She wasn't just standing up for herself, she was standing up for her mother too. And as the officer continued to laugh, Alicia knew that soon, things would change. As the conversation between Alicia and the officer continued, the tension in the air seemed to grow thicker with each passing second. Alicia stood there trying to remain calm, but the officer's mockery was starting to wear on her. He was clearly enjoying the situation, laughing at her every time she insisted that her mother was part of the elite special forces. It felt as though he was dismissing her not only as a child but as a person, as if her words and her truth meant nothing at all. The officer, standing with his arms crossed, looked her up and down one more time as if trying to see if there was any hint of a lie in her demeanor. "So your mom's in the special forces, huh?" he repeated, his voice dripping with disbelief. "What'd she do? Jump out of helicopters, save the world, all that superhero stuff?" He laughed again, as if the idea was completely absurd. Alicia could feel her stomach tightening with each word, each laugh that echoed in the air. But this wasn't a joke to her. This wasn't something to laugh off. Alicia's mom had sacrificed so much for her country. She had faced danger, fought in wars, and been through training that most people could never imagine. To Alicia, her mother was nothing short of a hero, and yet here was this officer, a figure of authority, laughing at her like she was some child making up a story for attention. The injustice of it all made Alicia's chest tighten with anger, but she couldn't let him see her falter. She had to stay strong even if he wasn't taking her seriously. "I'm not lying," Alicia said, her voice trembling slightly but still firm. She had to push back against this officer's rude laughter, to remind him that what she was saying was real. "My mom is part of a special operations unit. She's been in the military for years. She's the real deal, not some fake story." The officer didn't seem to hear her. Instead, he smirked, shaking his head in a dismissive manner. "Yeah, sure, kid. I'm sure she's a secret agent or something, right? Maybe she's a spy who saves the world in her spare time." His laughter grew louder, his tone mocking, as if to say she was nothing but a child with a wild imagination. "And you're just waiting for the bus here, right?" The more the officer spoke, the more Alicia felt her patience thinning. She had told him the truth, but he refused to believe her. His attitude was a reflection of something much bigger than this single encounter. It was about the way people like Alicia, like her mother, were often disregarded or underestimated because of their background or appearance. It was about the way society judged her based on where she came from and what she looked like, without ever taking the time to understand the truth behind it. Alicia felt a familiar weight settle on her shoulders. It was the weight of being a young black girl, used to the side glances, the judgments, the assumptions people made about her before they ever knew her. It was the weight of not being given the benefit of the doubt, of having to prove herself more than others just because of her skin color and her background. But today, she wasn't going to let that stop her. Today, she would make sure that officer knew he was wrong. "Why don't you believe me?" Alicia asked, trying to stay calm but feeling a lump rise in her throat. "Why do you keep laughing like I'm lying?" The officer, clearly not understanding the depth of what he was doing, shrugged dismissively. "Kid, it's just too much. You don't look like someone whose mom is in the special forces. You're just a kid standing here waiting for the bus. Come on, don't make up stories." He was so sure of himself, so smug in his belief that she was just another child trying to gain attention or tell an exaggerated tale. Alicia couldn't understand how someone could be so confident in their ignorance. She wasn't making up a story. This wasn't some wild fantasy. This was her reality. She wanted to argue more, but something in her stopped her. It wasn't that she didn't want to fight back. Alicia was a fighter, just like her mother. But she knew that fighting words with words might not change anything in this moment. Instead, she decided to hold her ground, looking the officer directly in the eye. She wouldn't allow him to keep mocking her. She wouldn't let him make her feel small. Her mother had always told her that people who try to put others down are the ones who have the least to say. Alicia wasn't going to stoop to his level, no matter how hard it was to bite her tongue. Instead, she simply stood there in silence for a moment, allowing the officer's laughter to die down, letting the awkwardness of the situation sink in. She was tired of defending herself, tired of trying to make him see the truth when he wasn't ready to listen. She knew that words wouldn't be enough to change his mind, but Alicia had something else in mind. The officer might have laughed at her now, but he wouldn't be laughing for long. She had no idea how, but she knew deep down that somehow, some way, Her mother would show up and put an end to this. She was a force to be reckoned with, and Alicia was more than ready to show this officer that. As the minutes ticked by and the officer's laughter began to quiet, Alicia's mind raced. She could feel her blood boiling with frustration, but at the same time she knew this moment was going to be more important than any of them could imagine. This wasn't just about proving a point to one officer. It was about proving to herself that she wasn't going to let anyone's laughter or ridicule define her. She would stand tall, and in the end her truth would win. Alicia stood there, feeling the weight of the officer's disbelief pressing down on her. Despite his mocking laughter and dismissive attitude, she refused to let herself show how deeply it hurt. She had always been a confident girl, thanks to the strength and guidance her mother had instilled in her, but today something felt different. It wasn't just the officer's skepticism, it was the way he looked at her, as if she were less than she was, as if her story wasn't worth hearing. The minutes dragged on, and Alicia's thoughts raced. She couldn't understand why people always doubted her, always assumed the worst based on how she looked. Alicia had heard the whispers, the looks of suspicion that followed her wherever she went. It wasn't just about this officer. It was a constant struggle, a feeling of having to prove herself again and again. And yet, despite everything, she still held her head high. Her mother had taught her that confidence came from within, not from others' validation. Alicia's mother had shown her time and again how to handle adversity, how to keep her dignity intact even when the world seemed to be pushing against her. Alicia thought back to all the times her mother had faced difficult situations, whether it was a hostile crowd or an unfair judgment. She had always remained calm, poised, and unshaken. She had learned to hold her ground, to let her actions speak louder than the words of those who didn't understand. As the officer continued to stand there, clearly enjoying his own skepticism, Alicia decided to stop arguing with him. She wasn't going to waste her energy trying to convince him of something he didn't want to believe. Instead, she focused on something else, herself. Alicia knew the truth, and that was enough. She didn't need the officer to believe her. She didn't need him to validate her reality. What mattered now was showing him that she wasn't just some kid making up stories. She was strong, smart, and confident, and no amount of mockery would change that. She squared her shoulders, her posture straightening as she stood tall in front of him. Alicia had always been small for her age, but she had learned that strength didn't always come from physical size. It came from within. She could feel the energy building in her chest, a quiet storm of determination that pushed back against the officer's dismissive behavior. She wasn't going to be the one to back down. Instead of speaking, Alicia decided to let the silence speak for her. She stood still, locking eyes with the officer, not moving an inch. She could feel her heart beating in her chest, but she didn't flinch. She wasn't afraid of him. In fact, she realized that she was beginning to feel something else, pride. The pride of knowing that no matter how much he mocked her, she had the truth on her side. And it wasn't just any truth. It was the truth about who her mother was, about the sacrifices her mother had made, and about the strength and resilience that ran through their family. The officer didn't know this truth, and perhaps he never would. But that was okay. Alicia had long since learned that some people wouldn't understand no matter how hard you tried to explain. That was their problem, not hers. Her job was to keep moving forward, to continue living her life with the same strength and confidence her mother had always shown her. And that's exactly what she intended to do. As the minutes ticked by in the tense silence, Alicia felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. She wasn't going to get riled up by the officer anymore. She didn't need to. Her silence was powerful. It showed him that she didn't need his approval, didn't need to explain herself. She was standing her ground, and that was all that mattered. The officer, however, seemed to be growing more and more uncomfortable. His eyes darted between Alicia and the people around them, who were beginning to notice the strange standoff. Some bystanders, who had been silently watching the exchange, began to murmur among themselves. Alicia could feel their eyes on her, and though she was still frustrated, a small part of her felt comforted by the idea that maybe, just maybe, someone else would understand. Her confidence was slowly starting to have an effect. The officer, who had been so sure of himself, was now beginning to doubt. His earlier laughter had faded, replaced by a more cautious expression. He could no longer rely on his arrogance to dismiss Alicia's words. Something about her quiet strength was starting to crack through his tough exterior. Alicia didn't look away. She kept her gaze locked on his, unyielding. She wasn't going to be the one to break. But then, as if on cue, the sound of tires rolling over the gravel road caught both their attention. The officer's gaze shifted and Alicia's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know who it was, but she had a feeling. Her mother was here. Alicia didn't flinch or look away. She knew what was coming, and as the car came into view, she felt a surge of pride flood through her. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The officer would see the truth for himself. He would see her mother, strong, confident, and as real as they come. Alicia didn't need to say another word. She just stood there, her shoulders squared, her gaze steady, and waited for the moment when everything would change. The officer had no idea what was about to happen, but Alicia did. Her mother was coming to prove her right, and with her arrival, everything was about to shift. As Alicia stood there, locked in her quiet but determined stare with the officer, the world around her seemed to slow down. She could feel the intensity of the moment pressing against her like a thick fog. The officer, still standing in front of her, had clearly reached the limits of his skepticism. His smile had faded, replaced by a furrowed brow as the silence between them stretched on. The murmurs of the bystanders were growing louder, people beginning to notice the awkwardness of the situation. Alicia could sense the shift in the air. There was tension, but also something else. Anticipation. Just as the officer opened his mouth to speak again, probably to continue mocking her or doubting her story, a car pulled up to the curb with a sudden screech of tires. Alicia's heart leaped in her chest as she recognized the vehicle immediately. It was her mother's car. Alicia didn't even need to see her face. She knew her mother's car by the sound, by the way it came to a perfect stop as if it had been perfectly timed. The officer, noticing the same car, turned his attention toward it, his earlier smirk fading into a confused look. Alicia could feel her pulse quicken, not from nerves but from something deeper. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The moment that would prove the officer wrong. The moment that would show everyone who her mother truly was. The door of the car swung open, and out stepped a woman dressed in military fatigues, her movements confident, precise, and full of purpose. Alicia felt an overwhelming sense of pride as she saw her mother step onto the scene. There was no mistaking the way she moved, the energy she carried with her. The way she held herself wasn't just about her uniform. It was the aura of authority and experience, the kind of presence that commanded respect without even having to speak. Alicia's mother was everything the officer had just dismissed, and then some. The officer blinked, clearly surprised. His eyes swept from Alicia's mother to Alicia, as if trying to make sense of what was happening. His lips parted as if he was about to speak, but no words came out. Alicia could feel the tension in the air shift. The officer had been certain that Alicia was lying, mocking her with every word, but now reality was staring him right in the face. He had laughed at Alicia's claim, laughed at the idea that a young girl like her could have a mother who was part of something so prestigious, so elite. But here she was, standing tall, her posture exuding power, a stark contrast to the officer's earlier dismissiveness. Alicia's mother didn't need to say a word. The moment she stepped onto the scene, it was clear. The officer's expression faltered, and for a split second he looked almost sheepish. His arrogance was quickly crumbling under the weight of Alicia's mother's presence. It was as if the air had been sucked out of the space between them, and the officer suddenly found himself standing on uncertain ground. His bravado was slipping, and Alicia could see it in his eyes. The officer's patrol car had already disappeared down the street, the engine's roar fading into the distance. The air around Alicia and her mother seemed to settle, the heavy tension finally lifting as the crowd of onlookers dispersed. Alicia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment begin to ease. The adrenaline that had been coursing through her veins moments earlier was slowly subsiding, but her heart still raced a little. She glanced up at her mother, who was still standing tall, calm, and composed. She felt a mix of awe and gratitude for her mother. How could anyone possess such unshakable strength in the face of such ridicule? Her mother didn't say anything right away. Instead, she reached down and gently placed a hand on Alicia's shoulder, her touch warm and comforting. There was a brief silence between them, as if the both of them were allowing the moment to settle into their bones before speaking. Alicia could feel her mother's pride in her, and it made her chest swell. This wasn't just about the officer. It was about them standing together, unbreakable and united. Alicia had always known that her mother was a force to be reckoned with. But seeing her stand so composed in the face of the officer's mockery made Alicia realize just how powerful that strength was. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" her mother asked, her voice soft but steady. Alicia nodded, though she felt a knot in her throat. "I'm fine, Mom. I don't get it. Why would he assume that about us? Why didn't he believe me?" Alicia's voice trailed off, the hurt still lingering. Her mother smiled, a small, understanding smile that spoke volumes. "People like to make assumptions, especially when they don't know anything about you. It's easy for them to believe in stereotypes, to look at someone and assume they know everything about them. But the truth is, people can't really know who you are just by looking at you. That's the lesson I hope he learned today. Not just that I'm a part of the special forces, but that you, my daughter, are not to be underestimated." Alicia looked up at her mother, her eyes wide. She hadn't realized until this very moment how much her mother had shaped her, not just in terms of her beliefs, but in the way she carried herself in the world. Alicia's mother hadn't raised her to shy away from confrontation or to hide her truth because of what others thought. Instead, she had taught Alicia how to stand tall, how to speak her truth and face the world even when it was hard, even when others doubted her. Alicia had seen this strength in her mother before, but today, witnessing it firsthand had left a deep imprint on her heart. "It's just so frustrating," Alicia admitted, shaking her head slightly. "Why do people always judge us by what they see, not who we are?" Her mother's gaze softened as she bent down to Alicia's level, looking her straight in the eye. "Sweetheart, it's not your job to make everyone understand. It's their job to open their eyes. But what you can do is live your truth. Never let anyone's ignorance change how you see yourself. You know who you are. You know what you're capable of. And that's all that matters." Alicia took in her mother's words, the weight of them sinking deep within her. It was easy to feel small when others doubted her, when they mocked her. But her mother was teaching her a valuable lesson. The most important thing was not to change herself to fit others' expectations. It was about standing firm in who she was and not allowing anyone to tell her she wasn't enough. Alicia had always admired her mother's strength, but now she was beginning to understand what it truly meant to be strong, to remain true to yourself no matter what others thought or said. Her mother straightened up and gave Alicia's shoulder a gentle squeeze. "I've been where you are, Alicia. I've had my fair share of people who doubted me, who thought they knew me based on how I looked or what I did for a living. But none of that defines who I am, and nothing about this officer's mistake should define you." Alicia swallowed, feeling a new sense of resolve building within her. She had always known her mother's career had been challenging, facing danger, risk, and prejudice. But hearing her speak about it with such quiet strength made Alicia feel as if she, too, could handle whatever life threw at her. She didn't need the world's approval to prove her worth. She was enough, just as she was. They stood there for a moment side by side as Alicia's mother continued to reassure her with her presence. There was no anger in her demeanor, no bitterness in her voice. She wasn't someone who allowed negative experiences to control her. Instead, her mother was focused on the bigger picture, the lesson learned, the resilience gained, and the power of standing up for yourself. "I'm proud of you, Alicia," her mother said softly. "You didn't let him make you feel small. You stood your ground, and that's more important than anything else." Alicia smiled up at her mother, feeling the pride and love radiating from her. In that moment, she realized that her mother wasn't just proud of her for proving the officer wrong. She was proud of her for staying true to herself, for not giving in to the pressure of being misunderstood. Alicia felt a rush of warmth, a quiet strength blossoming in her chest. "Thanks, Mom," Alicia said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I don't know what I would do without you." Her mother smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from Alicia's face. "You've always had it in you, Alicia. I'm just here to remind you of what you're capable of." Alicia felt a wave of emotion flood over her. She had always admired her mother, but today she felt like she truly understood her. It wasn't just about her mother's military service or her role in the special forces. It was about her mother's quiet strength, her ability to weather storms with grace and dignity. Alicia realized that this was the kind of strength she wanted to carry with her throughout her life. She didn't need to fight every battle with words or anger. Sometimes the strongest response was simply to stand firm in your truth, to let your actions speak louder than any words could. As they began to walk away from the scene, Alicia's mother slipped her arm around her shoulders. Together, they left the officer's mistake behind them, stepping forward with renewed confidence and pride. Alicia didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. She had already proven to herself that she was capable of handling whatever life threw her way, and with her mother by her side, she knew there was nothing she couldn't face. As Alicia and her mother walked away from the scene, the weight of the moment seemed to hang in the air like a fading echo. The officer's car was long gone, and the crowd that had gathered to watch the exchange had slowly dispersed, their murmurs dying down as the streets returned to their usual hum. But Alicia didn't feel the usual sense of closure that often followed a confrontation. This moment, she realized, was different. It was more than just proving someone wrong. It was a moment of self-realization, a turning point in how she saw herself and the world around her. Alicia glanced up at her mother, who was walking beside her with the same quiet composure that had marked every moment of the encounter. Despite the tension, despite the officer's mockery, her mother had remained calm and steady, never allowing the situation to get the best of her. Alicia had always admired her mother's strength, but today, she understood it in a new way. It wasn't just about physical strength or the ability to face danger. It was about the inner strength that allowed her mother to remain grounded, to never let the negativity of others shake her confidence or define her. As they walked, Alicia felt a soft tug on her sleeve. She turned to see a few bystanders who had witnessed the exchange earlier, and they were now approaching her and her mother. The looks on their faces were different now, no longer filled with curiosity or indifference, but with something deeper, something more thoughtful. One of the women, an older lady who had been watching from a distance, stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said, her voice gentle but clear. "I just wanted to say I saw what happened with that officer and I just wanted to thank you for standing your ground." She looked directly at Alicia, then at her mother. It's not every day you see someone handle themselves with such grace. That officer needed to learn a lesson and you two gave it to him. Alicia felt a wave of warmth spread through her chest. She hadn't expected this. The officer's harsh words had stung, but now, hearing this woman's appreciation made Alicia realize that what had happened wasn't just a small moment. It had an impact, a ripple effect. The people around them had witnessed something important, and they weren't just watching for entertainment, they were learning from it. Alicia hadn't just stood up for herself. She had stood up for the truth, for dignity, and that was something people could recognize and respect, even if they didn't fully understand it. The woman smiled at Alicia, giving her a nod of acknowledgement before turning to her mother. "You've raised a strong young woman," she said. "She's got your strength for sure." Alicia's mother nodded but didn't speak right away. There was something about her silence that made the exchange feel even more powerful. It was as if her mother didn't need to say much because her actions had already spoken volumes. Instead, Alicia's mother simply smiled back, her expression soft but proud. The woman's words hung in the air as she walked away, leaving Alicia and her mother standing in the quiet street. For a moment, Alicia didn't know what to say. She had always known her mother was a role model, someone others looked up to, but today Alicia had truly felt that power. And now, seeing the way others respected her mother's composure and grace, Alicia realized something important. Her mother wasn't just a strong woman because of what she did in her career. She was strong because of the way she carried herself, because of how she handled life's challenges with dignity and unwavering confidence. As they continued walking, Alicia felt her chest swell with pride. She hadn't just gained something from the officer's mistake today. She had gained a deeper understanding of herself. She wasn't just her mother's daughter. She was capable of standing her ground, of facing doubt and ridicule with courage. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was about learning who you truly were and how you could carry yourself with strength, even in the most difficult of situations. But the deeper realization that struck Alicia was that the officer's mistake wasn't the only thing that had changed today. The entire interaction, from start to finish, had shifted something in the way she viewed the world. She had always felt like she was fighting an uphill battle, trying to prove herself in a world that often judged her based on her appearance or background. She had felt like she had to always be louder, stronger, or more convincing to get people to take her seriously. But now, after watching her mother's quiet strength, Alicia understood that she didn't need to fight the world's assumptions with anger or frustration. The key was to stay true to herself, to show up as she was, and to trust in her own abilities. People would always have their judgments, but Alicia now knew that the way she responded, her own strength, her own confidence was what truly mattered. As they reached the bus stop, Alicia turned to her mother with a smile. "You were amazing back there, Mom," she said, her voice filled with admiration. "I can't believe how calm you stayed the whole time. You really showed that, officer." Her mother looked down at her, a soft smile curling on her lips. "It's not about showing people, sweetheart. It's about showing yourself. When you know who you are, nothing else matters." Alicia nodded slowly, the weight of her mother's words sinking in. She'd always looked up to her mother, but today, she saw her in a new light. It wasn't just her mother's career or the way she carried herself in uniform. It was the strength, grace, and dignity with which she handled life that made her truly remarkable. As the bus arrived, Alicia and her mother climbed aboard, finding their seats and settling in. Alicia looked out the window, her mind still buzzing with the events of the day. The officer was long gone, but the lessons learned from that encounter were only just beginning to sink in. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. She had learned how to stand strong in her own truth, how to face doubt and ridicule without losing herself. And as they drove off into the evening, Alicia realized that her journey wasn't about trying to convince others of her worth. It was about knowing it for herself. And with her mother by her side, she knew she could face anything the world threw her way. As Alicia and her mother settled into their seats on the bus, the rhythmic hum of the wheels against the pavement became a soft backdrop to the whirlwind of thoughts swirling in Alicia's mind. The events of the day, everything from the officer's dismissive laughter to her mother's calm and unshakable presence, kept replaying in her mind, each moment packing a heavier weight with every reflection. The world outside the bus window was blurred, but the clarity of her new understanding was sharper than ever. Alicia had faced countless challenges growing up, always carrying the heavy weight of stereotypes and judgment on her shoulders. She had learned early on that people would judge her based on how she looked, based on assumptions that weren't true, and that sometimes the world would try to make her feel smaller than she was. But today, for the first time, Alicia felt like she had truly broken free from that. The officer, the mockery, the judgment, none of it mattered anymore. What mattered was that she had stood her ground. She hadn't let the officer's dismissive attitude or laughter define her. She had known the truth, and in that moment, she had spoken it with unwavering confidence. As the bus rolled through the familiar streets of their neighborhood, Alicia realized that this was a moment she would never forget. It wasn't just about proving the officer wrong or even showing him up. It was about proving something to herself. She had always admired her mother for her strength and composure, but now Alicia had internalized that strength. She was no longer just the daughter of a special forces operative. She was a young woman who could stand up for herself, speak her truth, and carry herself with dignity, no matter how the world might try to push her down. The silence between them was comfortable, a mutual understanding passing between Alicia and her mother. Alicia had always known her mother was special, someone capable of incredible feats of bravery and strength. But today she had seen that strength in a new light. It wasn't just about the battles her mother had fought in the field. It was about the quiet battles she fought every day, navigating a world that constantly underestimated her. Alicia had always admired her mother's strength, but now she felt a deep sense of connection to that strength. She wasn't just following in her mother's footsteps, she was carving her own path with her mother's wisdom guiding her. Alicia finally broke the silence. "Mom, do you ever get tired of proving people wrong? I mean, you've done so much, but it seems like people still doubt you. Do you ever just wish they'd see it without you having to show them?" Her mother smiled softly, looking at Alicia with a look that was both understanding and reassuring. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice steady but full of warmth, "people will always have their doubts. It's just part of life. You can't change how others see you. What you can do is decide how you see yourself. If you let others' doubts shape who you are, you'll spend your whole life trying to prove something to them. But if you know who you are, if you understand your worth, then you don't have to waste energy on their opinions." Alicia felt her heart swell as her mother's words sank in. For so long, she had been focused on making others believe in her, on convincing people that she was worthy of respect, of being taken seriously. But now it felt like a weight had been lifted. She didn't need to prove herself to anyone but herself. The strength her mother had always carried was now hers to claim. She could walk through the world with her head held high, knowing that her truth was powerful enough to stand on its own. "Thanks, Mom," Alicia said quietly, her voice filled with gratitude. "You've taught me so much without even saying a word. I think I finally get it. I don't need to fight for respect. I just need to be who I am." Her mother nodded, her gaze softening. "You've always been who you are, Alicia. You just needed to see it for yourself." The bus made a stop, and as they continued on their way, Alicia couldn't help but feel like something had shifted inside of her. It wasn't just about today. It was about everything that had led her to this moment. Her mother's teachings, the moments of doubt and uncertainty, the way she had always felt like she had to push harder to be seen, all of that had led her to this point, where she now knew deep down that she was enough. When they arrived at their stop, Alicia stepped off the bus first, breathing in the cool evening air. The world felt different now, as if a new door had opened before her, one that led to a future where she didn't have to fight for a place in the world, because she already belonged. As they walked home side by side, Alicia realized that the officer's laughter no longer echoed in her mind. Instead, it was replaced by a deep, quiet understanding that she had proven something far greater than just a point. She had proven to herself that she could face anything, that she didn't need validation from anyone else to know her worth. The evening sky stretched above them, stars beginning to twinkle as the city around them settled into the calm of the night. Alicia looked up at her mother, her heart full of pride and gratitude. For the first time, she felt like she was walking beside her mother as an equal, not just as her daughter. She was her mother's daughter in every sense, but she was also her own person, strong, capable, and ready to face whatever challenges the world might throw her way. Together, they walked into the quiet night, knowing that no matter what happened, they had each other. And that, Alicia realized, was more than enough.